access to community and community development, especially with companies like Little Man Ice Cream being some of our greatest mentors and inspirations. We really wanted to see something happen in Walsenburg that was not just a restaurant, but a catalyst for community change.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Behind the Small Business Podcast. My name is Kevin Dandino. I am glad to be with you here today, even though I forget what we're doing is the podcast is a show, whatever it is. We have the owner of Gub Gub's Pizzeria and Ice Cream in Walsenburg, Colorado with us here today. So we'll bring her up here in just a second. But first, remember, guys, this podcast is open to all small business owners. If you have a small business yourself that you want to share the story, get highlighted, let us know. Send us a message, send us a DM, whatever the kids are saying nowadays, and we will get in touch with you and figure out a time to get you up here on stage yourself. Also, this is brought to you by Centennial State Insurance Agency. So if you're looking for a personal or commercial kind of quote, whatever you're looking for, give us a call today, 303-838-0554. But with that, let's bring up the star of today's show, Helena Cappon. Hopefully I didn't screw that one up. I practiced it beforehand. You heard it, but glad to have you here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. As you said, I am one of three owners actually of Gub Gub's Pizza and Ice Cream. I'm the majority owner, and I do that with my husband, Thomas, and my dad, Jack. And it's a little bit of a funny story, actually. My husband and I met when we were both in college at the University of Denver, up in Denver. And that's where I'm from. My dad and I are originally from New York before that, so no strangers to a slice of pizza. It's in our blood, it's in our culture. And
Exactly.
and when I met my husband, we both had the same scholarship to go to DU and met through that. He was from this super tiny town called Walsenburg, Colorado, in the southern part of the state that I had never heard of, except that my parents had just bought a house down there 2 years earlier as like an investment retirement property that they were looking to get out of Denver and hang out somewhere else. And so I was like, get out of town. My parents had just moved down there, and, you know, I was thinking about it, and then he's from there. And so it was just kind of this huge coincidence of we needed to see what was up in Southern Colorado. And, you know, between that, we started dating, and then we got married. And I had always worked in the front of restaurants, like as a server, a hostess, a shift leader, things like that. My husband had always worked in kitchens in his life and baked and loved to bake with his mom growing up and things like that. And my dad actually has spent a lot of time in construction and building in restaurants. So some projects like Little Man Ice Cream in Denver, one of them is just something that he kind of helped build and maintained and things like that. So between the three of us, we were like, well, why not us? We should see what we can do for Walsenburg.
Yeah, definitely. And to just, I mean, I know Little Man Ice Cream. I mean, I look at me, I know ice cream, right? I know, but I would love to have him on. I mean, that alone, to have that connection right there is phenomenal. So that's a whole nother podcast all in itself. And fascinating, just the way y'all met from, he's from Walsenburg, the timing of it all, that's phenomenal. I definitely want to get more into the history of Gub Gubs as well, because every small business has its own story, and it's fascinating. It's why we do this podcast, right? But there's something about a small business in a really small town where I guarantee you, if you polled most people in Colorado, the vast majority of them wouldn't know where Walsenburg was or have even heard of it.
Absolutely.
So to have a small business in a small town like that, I mean, that's as America as it gets. And so kind of walk us through, I mean, reading through the background on your website and stuff, it's just a fascinating story, but walk us through, what is Gub Gub's Pizza and Ice Cream?
Absolutely. So as my husband and I started dating way back then, we would sit in this Carl's Jr. parking lot right on the main street of Walsenburg, where our main street intersects with the Highway 160. And as you said, most people have no idea what Walsenburg is, but they've been through Walsenburg. We get 3 million cars through our town annually, and that's because you have to turn right in Walsenburg to get out to the Great Sand Dunes National Park. So
exactly.
We're like, oh, wait, yeah, no, we drove through there. Absolutely. And And we would sit in this Carl's Jr. parking lot on that main intersection, and we would look at this 1960s Standard Oil gas station across the street. And it was empty, it was unused, and a little bit
Mm.
dilapidated, had been empty for years. And we would just daydream about, wouldn't that be something so special for this community to get those folks to pull off of the road and to be a place that, we always talk about this third space. It's a big concept in Denver. It's a big concept in cities to have that place to go that's not your job, it's not your house, it's that third place to hang out and to be. And Walsenburg didn't have a ton of that going on. And we, especially being the scholarship kids that we were, and having this access to opportunity and this access to community and community development, especially with companies like Little Man Ice Cream being some of our greatest mentors and inspirations,
Sure.
we really wanted to see something happen in Walsenburg that was not just a restaurant, but a catalyst for community change. And my husband, being a fifth generation Walsenburger, his ancestors go all the way back. I think one of them married Fred Walson, who founded, Walsenburg. So
Wow.
they're no strangers to the area. They love it down here. All of his siblings moved back. They're huge supporters and very passionate about this community. And that was so infectious for me and for my parents. And we wanted to see that same investment in Walsenburg that we had the opportunity to see in Denver through some of those companies like Little Man. And so we would daydream about it. And as luck would have it, my very first boss from Little Man, Paul Tamburillo, happened to drive through Walsenburg later that summer. And I was joking with him and I said, we should do something crazy like Little Man down here. This community could really benefit from that. And he took me seriously and helped us acquire that property, and co-signed on loans and invested, and was a
Wow.
huge part of the reason that we're able to be here. And that, in addition with one of the scholarships that I got for college, the Greenhouse Scholars Program, um, they were my second call after Paul. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I
Yeah.
want to see this be that community change. And they jumped right on and offered grant funding and mentorship and just everything they could to ensure our success. And so that's
Wow.
kind of how we started this this whole idea of making it. And everybody asks us why it's called Gub Gubs. It's a very silly name, we know.
Yeah.
And a big part of Gub Gub's Pizza and Ice Cream and our mission is access to resources for rural students. My husband was
Mhm.
one of very few students to get the Daniels Fund scholarship that we both had,
Mm.
in a rural community. It's rare, to see these kids kind of get that access, get that opportunity, or even know, that these things are out there. And we wanted to see more opportunity, more programming for kids. And so Gub Gub is my cat, and she was named after the pig in the original 1932 Dr. Dolittle book series.
There
And
you go.
we just have such a passion for literacy and getting kids to read and getting them excited about learning, that we thought it was the best thing that we could do to kind of bring it all together and bring it in with our mission.
That's phenomenal. I think every story that starts with like, man, we were sitting there and we were dreaming of like, fantastic this would be if we could
Mhm.
make something like this happen. Um, but then to be given the opportunity. I mean, I think how
Yes.
many people in the situation where, oh yeah, wouldn't it be funny if we did something like this? And do you wanna? I mean, how
Yeah.
many people would down from that? I mean, versus jump at that opportunity like you did. So I think that in itself is incredibly commendable, and is really showing the drive you have and willingness to make that impact in the community. That I think just again, how many people are willing to put action behind their words, and you guys definitely stepped up, and that's phenomenal. I think one thing I wanted to ask you with that though is out of all the options you had there, you know, why pizza? Was it just because of your New York background and stuff, or like everything you could have done there? Like why pizza? I get the ice cream too with the little man stuff, but yeah, why that?
You know, my dad always talked about growing up. We actually had our favorite pizza shop in New York on Long Island in Port Washington. It's called Carlos Pizza, and it's going strong
Mm.
to this day. And my dad grew up going to Carlos Pizza and the place that was there right before it. And I grew up going to Carlos Pizza. And kids would stack their bikes outside and run in for a slice. Like you'd always see everybody on their lunch breaks, right lining up at the counter for one. And I mean, on a Saturday night, there was a 2-3 hour wait sometimes to get a pizza, just because everybody was
Wow.
ordering from this place. And for us, pizza really means community. It really means that novelty and that nostalgia of growing up and having that place that everybody goes to. And then, my dad helped build and help maintain a lot of the Little Man ice cream locations. But that was my first job as well. And I worked there for about 10 years. And watching this place, which was just a tiny little ice cream shop when I started, and those crazy Little Man ice cream lines that started to develop over years kind of happened as I was growing up working there. And I just realized that we weren't just serving that scoop of ice cream. We were serving that positive community impact and seeing these people come together and just really enjoy themselves and build that community together.
Yeah.
And kind of with that, when we were doing our market research and trying to figure out what this area needed, because it's not, when you start a business, it's, you might think that it's, what you want to give out to your community and what you want
For
to provide
sure.
and what services can do. And that's a huge part of it. But for us, it was a lot of community feedback. And what does
Hmm.
Walsenburg need out of its business owners and its economy and its revitalization? And we came across this article, I believe in the New York Times, I can't remember, that said most successful small towns in the United States have three things in common, and that's a pizza shop, an ice cream shop, and a bookstore. Those are some of the three most common businesses you see in like really successful, small main streets in America. And we were like, well, shoot, we can do 2 out of 3 of those. And we have some background in that. And my
Yeah.
husband as well grew up baking with his mom. He loves making bread. He loves making all of that. And we knew that he could figure out a pizza dough recipe at this crazy altitude of 6,000 feet that was reminiscent of what my dad and I grew up in New York enjoying. And he did it. It is truly so amazing. This guy's
Hmm.
never been to New York. He's never eaten the pizza out there. And he has gotten as close as I can feel to that Long Island, New York style pizza of
Right.
anybody who hasn't actually been out there making it, with the pros out there. And it just kind of came together in this kismet moment of, we also have a lot of burger shops. We have a lot of breakfast places. We had a Mexican place. And it's not about competition for us. It's about, filling in the gaps and what's
Yeah.
needed. And, that really seemed to be what Walsenburg was missing. It was a mom and pop pizza shop. And here we are.
I think you hit on several just really key topics that, especially for people who are aspiring to be business owners, could benefit from, or even people who are just starting. Right,
Mhm.
it is incredibly vital to be doing something that you're passionate in. Right, you could find the number one need of a community, and that's great and all. But if it's something that makes you miserable or you just hate doing, you're not gonna. It's not gonna be successful. There's no chance it's gonna be sustainable for you in the long run, right? But
Absolutely.
alternatively, hey, I love doing this, but nobody cares, right? Guess
Yeah.
what? You're also not making any money that way.
No, it's
So I
it's
think
a
that's perfect.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's perfect. When you find that balance of what does the community want, what do they need, what can we provide to them that is also going to be meaningful to us, because that's just going to keep adding fuel to that fire over the long term there. And so I was curious, how long have you guys been open now?
So at our current location, we've been open for 2 years, but
Okay.
we acquired the building in 2021, and we spent about 3, 4 years almost just developing the space into a pizza shop, because when you're on a shoestring budget and,
Hmm.
trying to figure out, we had also never made a pizza before, we
Right.
decided we were gonna run a pizza shop, which is crazy. Not as uncommon as you think. I've met a lot of other pizza shop owners who, they were engineers and they quit their day jobs or lawyers and they started pizza. It's an
Yeah,
interesting, community for sure. But
I bet.
absolutely, and before that, so we opened our doors at 629 Main Street in Walsenburg on Labor Day weekend of 2024. But before
Nice.
that, we actually had the opportunity to reside inside of a business incubator in Walsenburg, and it's called the Walsenburg Mercantile. And
Okay.
Erica Andrietta and her husband Chad Andrietta are the masterminds behind that one. And they did this whole community project of mixed use development in this space where it's Airbnb lofts upstairs, and the main floor is, I think, over 100 local artisans now who sell fresh flowers and handmade soaps and clothes and jewelry and things like that. And the funny thing was, is she knew Paul from Little Man Ice Cream and called him up in Denver right when she was starting that project. And she's like, "Hey, do you want to put a Little Man inside my new Walsenburg Mercantile?" And he was like, "Have you met Helena? You know, there's somebody down there who's kind of doing stuff. We're doing something different." And so she called me and gave us the opportunity to start our concept and grow it inside of
Wow.
her space, which was huge for us.
Yeah.
We would not be here without Erica and the Walsenburg Mercantile, because they gave us this opportunity to not only practice but engage with our community and learn so much about what they expected from us, and really refine what our brand meant and our product, and figure out what we needed to do to get those next steps done for the brick and mortar location. So we did
Yeah.
that for 2 years and then closed there and moved to the Mercantile. So about 4 years total now. We've been Gub Gub's Pizza and Ice Cream.
Fantastic. I think when you have a business concept like yours that right off the bat is speaking highly and a lot about community involvement and getting the
Mhm.
community involved, I think a lot of those opportunities are much more likely to pop up, right? Versus just anybody else that's trying to start a business. And I'm not trying to discount anyone out there, right? We all have different motivations and um, uh, focuses, especially when we're starting the business, right? There's a lot that goes into it. I understand. Um, but I kind of want to segue into this community piece for you. You mentioned it a little bit more earlier, but to dig deeper into this, because again, we talk about this on the podcast almost every episode, and hearing the different ways that small business owners get involved in their community. So much of it is what are they really truly passionate about, and what could they provide back to those around them. And there's just so many different ways to do it. And this is just another unique, fun example that is definitely impacting lives. And so tell us more about this literacy program, the reading program you have. Again, kind of like like why that out of everything, like why that, and just what's been going on with that, and how's it been growing and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. My grandma, my dad's mom, always said to us that if you can read, you can do anything. And she's
Hmm.
absolutely right. If you can read, you can cook, you can follow a recipe. If you can read, you can learn how
Yeah.
to fix a busted pipe, or, fix the chain on your bike. And she was a very, very passionate reader, and she read to us every night that we stayed at her house. My dad and my mom read to us every night when we were kids growing up, like up until we were 12 or 13. I think we finished with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. So whenever that, came out, that's when we kind of ended and started doing it on our own. But they fostered such an important relationship with this independence and this ability to teach yourself. And my husband grew up with that as well. His parents actually own the local newspaper down here, and were also super passionate about reading and literacy with their kids. And they're all incredible and, are amazing at it, to the point where they can edit and publish things as well. But both of us just came from this background of this being such an important part of how we graduated high school and got the scholarships we did, and got to college and got through college, and all of that. So it became a very important part of what we wanted to instill in local youth in Walsenburg and Orfano County. And Thomas, my husband, grew up with a Pizza Hut in town that had the Book It program, which a lot of old timers like us will remember.
Yep.
You get a you can read for a personal pan pizza. And
For sure. Oh, I remember that.
gosh, absolutely. And it is such an important part of so many people. They feel this nostalgia and this love for this program that they got to do growing up, especially in Walsenburg, because it was one of the few restaurants that we had going before I moved here, but as he was growing up, and his siblings as well. And so we knew we needed to bring that back. We needed to bring back something like that to really get kids excited about reading. So we call it the Gub Readers Club. And currently they have to read 40 books or 40 chapters of a book because we go all the way up until 18. We want to
Okay.
encourage high schoolers to read as well. And so if they're reading like a novel or a chapter book, we count that. And one kid even read his Serve Safe certification booklet, which is like the book you need to become a licensed food handler. And we thought that
Oh,
was so awesome that he was reading it
yeah.
to get back into our industry.
Yes.
Like, heck yeah, you get your pizza. Let's go. Um, and since we've opened at this location, we've done 143 free pizzas for reading, but we've done over 400 since we've opened our doors way back at the Walsenburg Mercantile. And for context, I think that's right around the amount of kids that we have in our county, give or take, plus or minus, small rural community. So that
Wow.
impact has been huge. Most, or at least half of the kids in our community have at least started the Gub Readers Club program, which has been so incredible to see. We're thrilled about it and love to see them getting so excited when they come in to tell us about it. It's truly one of the best parts of the job. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a really incredible experience and just such a big part of our mission, along with the downtown revitalization and everything else
Yeah.
in
There's
getting
that too.
space. And we also partnered with the library on this. So we have
Okay.
two libraries in our county, Levita Public Library and Spanish Peaks Library District. And both of them hold the Gub Readers trackers, the little pamphlets that you get at the library. And we partnered with them. So the kids get a stamp from Gub Gubs when they finish their trackers and they get to take that to the library for a prize. We believe that
Nice.
there's so many incredible resources in our local libraries and schools that kids need to take advantage of, and the programming, the books, the everything that you can get out of your local library. So we really encourage that relationship with our local resources. We do teen pizza night. We do half off to the library every Wednesday,
Oh,
where they
cool.
for kids, and just anything we can to really back that up and help other local programming as well. We really try to support initiatives that already exist as well, and not just create our own with this, but support what's already out there.
That's just so phenomenal to hear. The community involvement is you get back what you give, right? And that's not why you're doing it, but that is the cycle of it, right? And I think you get so much from it, from just seeing the impact. And let's be honest, find some other small business out there, any business out there that has something like a reading program and can say, yeah, about half of the community, children population are involved. Like half, it doesn't, I mean, that's still huge. And only, it's not like you've been doing this for 20 years. I mean, give that another 5+ years and see how much that continues to grow.
Mhm.
So it also speaks to, like, look, you found a location that, yeah, is great right off the road right there. The sand dunes are incredible spot. I know I've driven that myself a couple times growing up. I've been down there. So but then to see that the community is getting involved too, that means they are the ones that are continuing to support you, and it's not just the passing by traffic. So that's just so good to hear. And I hope just any other small business owners out there listening, again, find something that you're passionate about and
Mhm.
go give back, because it helps you, it helps them more than anything. And yeah, that's a great story. I love it. But and I don't want to forget this downtown revitalization stuff too. Like, what are you doing with that?
For sure. So anything we can, really. A huge part of it was getting the gas station cleaned up because it was just this, decrepit,
Yeah.
bad looking space right on Main Street. And, as a passer through that just sends such a signal, such a message. And we
Keep
want
driving. Yeah.
exactly. We wanted to exemplify like a really vibrant downtown because we are one of several incredible businesses on Main Street and in Walsenburg that do so much for, curb appeal and revitalization and just really bringing that life to our community. So we can't take credit for all this amazing stuff that's happening. We're just really big supporters of it. But that was
Yeah.
the first big part of it, was just let's see if we can get this space cleaned up and turned into a community space. We have a kids play area on our patio. We're dog friendly on our patio. So it's really a space you can just come and unwind with your family and hang out. We don't have a ton of local parks that are super accessible. We have a few,
Yeah.
but we saw the need for a safe place for kids to play and, wanted to foster that as much as we could with the space that we had. I sit on the downtown Walsenburg revitalization committee as well. And we do a ton to support local efforts and initiatives that WDRC does. Like we just did a whole mural fest this year. We do it every year, and Porch Fest in May and Memorial Weekend. And we got something like 8 murals up this year on a bunch of alleys and buildings in Walsenburg to really exemplify some cool local artists and actually artists from all over, and really brighten up these buildings and things and catch folks' eye as they're driving through, and just make it a really cool space for those who live here.
Yeah,
We support Flowers on Main Street. So downtown revitalization does all of the hanging baskets and planters you see on our main street. We
sure.
personally water a few of them every day, and support the volunteers who do. We contribute as well to. We have a parade of lights every year in
Okay.
Black Friday, and we're big supporters of that. Gub Gubs is the on our patio. We do the town-wide Christmas tree lighting. We get a big old tree, not quite Rockefeller
Nice.
Plaza, but close.
Close. Yeah, exactly.
Give or take a few hundred
Maybe
feet.
better in some regards. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got it.
But so once the parade ends, everybody comes to the Gub Gubs patio and we light the tree together, which is amazing. We have mining days. We're an old mining community, coal mining. That's what Walsenburg was known for up
Okay.
until about the 90s. That was the primary industry.
Really.
And so we do a festival every year with Walsenburg Downtown Revitalization where we just bring vendors and food, and we got a bounce house
Mm,
last year, that kind of stuff, to generate as much free community programming as we can. And that is just such a big part of what we're trying to do, especially with our downtown, uplift other local businesses. We partner with just about anybody who will have us, just because we want to see everybody grow. We want to see every storefront full. It's so important to us to see this come back and see the potential that Walsenburg has just really exemplified through all the wonderful people who work so hard here.
that's great. And I think, we'll talk more offline later, but any of those small businesses down there on Main Street,
Yeah,
they want to come on the show, they're more than happy to do so, because that kind of group community. I think you mentioned it earlier too. Like, you're not in it for the competition, right? Like that's not. There's such thing as healthy competition, right? But when you're in something like that, we're all helping each other out. We're all in the same community, right? Like we don't need to get nasty with each other or anything like that. So it's just good to see a community of small businesses like that helping each other out. So um,
absolutely.
I do kind of want to end the show on one more kind of topic, just let you talk about, as a still fairly new, I think you kind of passed the greenhorn status, but it's still
Yeah.
recent in your memory.
Cool.
um, what did you go through? What did you learn? What did you wish you had known when you set out, versus what you know now? Anything that you could just give to inspire other, again, new or aspiring business owners that want to be in your shoes before too long and be successful and have the impact that you guys are having.
For sure. I as you said, I'm still going through it for sure, still getting my sea legs, as it were, as a
For
small
sure.
business. But I think just some things that have been really important for me is, the whole idea of imposter syndrome. I
Mhm.
really had a hard time, especially in the beginning part of this just the beginning part of this project, because you're asking people for money, you're asking them for time, you're asking them for their experience, you know, and I had nothing to show for it yet because this is my first restaurant. This is my first, I owned a hot dog cart for a while, but that's not quite an entire brick and mortar.
It's a step up, right?
And these folks really had to put some trust and faith in me. And every time I sat down with an architect, an engineer, a city council person, another local business owner, I just was like, who am I to be in these spaces and to ask these people for everything? And
Mm,
especially when it got down to the wire in the last 3 months before we opened, our families came out every night and every weekend after work to build the fence that's around our patio, paint anything they could, sand anything they could, landscape,
hmm.
build tables, build chairs. Like these guys were just volunteering and showing up to do everything they could to get us open. And it was so
Wow.
overwhelming to be like, oh my gosh, we need to do this. But then I realized we can do this, and they're here for us and for our community. And I would say to any business owner, like, you absolutely can do it. And it is scary and it feels weird and you have to learn so much, and you have to be willing to quiet that fear of, feeling stupid, and
Mhm.
really understand it's okay to ask questions and it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to set forth into something that you might not have a lot of experience in, but you're willing to learn. And maybe the last thing with that, especially in our small community, is be kind to everyone and be intentional and be willing to accept criticism, even if it's
Yeah.
with a grain or two of salt, because there's typically something to learn from all of it. Even those super nasty one-star Google reviews or something like that, there can be something to learn from it. And we always lead with an approach of being as gracious and kind as we can, especially because for us, these are folks we see at Safeway or the post
Yeah.
office, and they're
Right.
walking down the street. Like, we just have seen in our experience both in Denver and in Walsenburg, sometimes a business owner gets so close to the edge and just, breaks and snaps back at, some of the unkindness that can be pushed towards you.
Mhm.
And I think it's really important to just always be very intentional and thoughtful in your communication with your customers, good, bad, or ugly, because these are still folks in your community. These are still people who, might one day change their mind, and come back. And, we need everybody we can get at Gub Gubs, because, we're 3,000 people strong in the winter, and we love
Right.
everyone a pizza. It keeps us going
Exactly.
all winter long when the crowds aren't coming through Walsenburg. And
Right.
that's just been very good for us, is to, just always be as kind and as thoughtful as we can, because even if someone is really frustrated and leaves you that negative review or something, it's worth a conversation with them. It's worth to talk through that experience and to figure out how you can grow, good, bad, or ugly.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm,
it's how you respond too,
mm,
and kind of what you're talking about, the kindness, and that person that left the 1-star review may not care,
mhm.
two craps worth of what you said in return, right? But somebody else might see that and
Absolutely.
go, well,
Yeah.
the way they respond like that, okay, I'm gonna lean more towards them. They sound a little bit more logical and kind of with it or whatever.
Oh,
But to show
sure.
that, still,
You can show your
take
best customer service in those moments, 100%.
exactly,
And it is
exactly.
so important, it really is. And and people are going to have opinions, because now that we have 20 employees, and we're not always, when we were at our business incubator, it was my husband and I, that was it.
Right.
And people saw our face, they knew we were Gub Gubs. And now that there's 20 employees, there's a little more anonymity, and they might just not know exactly what's up, or what your passion is, or why you do things the way you do or not. And people have opinions on pizza, let me tell you, because
Yeah,
there's this,
I'm sure.
Britain, there's Chicago, there's New York, and everybody has this different idea of a perfect pizza. And we might not be for everyone, but we certainly want to have those conversations with everyone, and make sure we're
Yeah.
doing our very best to accommodate. And that can sometimes be seen or perceived as a frustration, but we've ended up having some really cool conversations with people, and even getting some of our 1 stars changed to 4 and 5 stars, just because of
There you
opening,
go.
dialogues and having those
Yeah.
conversations. And I
Misunderstandings, right?
absolutely. And I think there's just such a power in being willing to sit down and be like, okay, I'm opening myself up. Let's talk. And it can be hard, because some days I don't want to do that either. But it
Nope.
it is what it is. And I think that that's one of the best things I could suggest to anybody else trying.
I love it. Well, you also said another key word in all that was humility and the imposter syndrome. Still, I get it. I am just as bad as the next person with dealing with that. But one way to put it is, anybody could ask a small business owner, you know, did you do this by yourself? And every single one of them is going to say, there's no way. And if they did say, oh, yeah, I did all of this by myself, they're either talking about their business that failed or they're straight up lying to you. Okay. That's the only two options. So, every single small business owner has had to ask for help. And
Mhm.
yeah, it means swallowing your pride. Yeah, it means doing something a little uncomfortable. But if it's something that you are wanting to pursue, um, don't let anyone stop yourself, including yourself, right? From just, I don't want to sound dumb. And I say that, and then I go struggle with it myself, right? But
100%.
those are great points. And I think from somebody who's going through it, recently and currently, is just hopefully inspiring to some people out there for sure.
Absolutely. And I would just love to say too, to all of your listeners and any future listeners, Gub Gubs is part of your community now. And if you are a small business owner and you just have super weird questions about what size pizza oven you should get, or, how to, deal with draft diverters, or, engineers or contractors, I don't always have the answer, but I'm just always happy to be a sounding board for anybody who has those weird little questions about, oh, well, I started a pizza shop, but ended up doing gas tank mitigation on an old gas station, and, had no idea what I was doing until I was in it. And, if there's anything that, rings a bell or sounds familiar, and, our experience can help, Gub Gubs is always a place that is willing to, help support any future or current business owner as we can. And because we have so many wonderful people like that in our network, and we always love to share that with anybody.
That's phenomenal. And I think just anybody who takes you up on that, just, hey, pay it forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may not be in the position of doing anything today, but someday you will be. And just, it's going to be your time to pay it forward when you can. So, Helena, thank you so much for being on. I definitely want to have you back on down the line and kind of hear more about how you're growing and, just everything that's going on down there and how it's, the community is growing and whatnot. So, but you've been fantastic to have on today. I definitely appreciate the time and you willing to share your story.
Absolutely. I'm just so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having us. I really appreciate it.
For sure. Well, if I didn't have a reason to go back to the sand dunes anytime soon, now I do. And it's to stop in Walsenburg at a specific pizza place there. We'll find a time and get some in-person recording or something for another episode or whatnot down the line. So
anytime, come see us. We love to see it.
Sounds good. Okay, everyone. Well, hey, again, thank you for tuning in for another episode of Behind the Small Business. Again, this is an open invitation for any small business owner out there to be on the show. Send us a message. Let us know you're interested, and we will get you all the information. No strings attached. This is just free publicity for you, our way of saying thank you to being a small business owner and giving back to the community ourselves. Also, if you're interested in looking for an insurance quote, whether it's personal, commercial, auto, home, umbrella, whatever it is, give us a call at Centennial State Insurance Agency, 303-838-0554. Be more than happy to give you that personalized care and attention that you only get from small businesses. So anyway, guys, with that being said, we will see you next time with another fantastic small business guest. But until then, we'll see you around, and you all take care.